Welcome to Everyday Buddhism, making every day better by applying the proven tools found in Buddhist concepts. Welcome to episode 20 of Everyday Buddhism, making every day better. This episode is extra special for me for three reasons. It's episode number 20. Wow, what can I say? 20. Number two, it is the first of what will be a series of episodes, I hope, where I will talk with the Buddhist teachers that not only educated me in the Dharma, but shaped my life for the better. And number three, the first teacher I will interview in this episode is Reverend Koyo Kubose, the spiritual leader of the Bright Dawn Center of Oneness Buddhism and my Sensei. Reverend Koyo was born in Los Angeles, California. After World War II, he relocated to Chicago with his family. He earned a BA from the University of California at Berkeley, an MA from San Francisco State University, and a PhD in psychology from the University of Iowa. He has been on the psychology faculties at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, the University of Hawaii in Honolulu, and the University of Wisconsin Center System in Janesville. Reverend Koyo went to Japan for 3 years and studied Shin Buddhism at the Eastern Buddhist Society at Otani University. He also did meditation practice under Zen masters Uchiyama Kosho of the Soto tradition and Kobori Nanrei, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, of the Rinzai tradition. When he returned to the U.S. in 1977, Reverend Koyo worked with his father, the Venerable Reverend Koyo Kubose, a pioneer in the Americanization of Buddhism, which I will get into a little bit in my introduction, my live introduction with Reverend Koyo. And also I will be posting an article on my website introducing the history of Bright Dawn and giving you a little more background. From 1983 to 1995, Reverend Koyo served as a minister at the Buddhist Temple of Chicago, which his father established in 1944. He is currently, as I said, the spiritual leader and president of the Bright Dawn Center of Oneness Buddhism, which he established in 1996 to carry on his father's life work. On April 4th, 1998, Reverend Koyo Kubose officially transmitted his spiritual authority to Reverend Koyo. In this episode, we will talk a little bit about the what of Bright Dawn, the why of Bright Dawn, the how of Bright Dawn, both the Bright Dawn Center of Oneness Buddhism and the Lay Ministry Program, which is the program I studied in and was inducted as a lay minister and sensei in. But we do this from Reverend Koyo's perspective and a little bit of banter back and forth about my experience with the program as well. So we talk about Bright Dawn's vision, its mission, and its special niche as a program focused on bringing the Dharma to everyone in an ordinary, everyday way. I am beginning a series of episodes focusing on the teachers that had the most influence on my understanding of Buddhist teachings and how I apply them to everyday life. So, of course, I had to start with you. Your influence through you and your father's Reverend Koyo Kubose's teachings and the true Sangha I founded, my family of Bright Dawn fellow lay ministers and lay minister students and interested Sangha members. It's sort of the very foundation of this podcast in many ways. You know, that podcast name, Everyday Buddhism, and my mission for it is directly inspired by your father's vision of bringing the Dharma to everyone in their everyday lives. he, quote, dreamed of establishing a uniquely American Buddhism, unquote. But we could even, nowadays, we would expand that to maybe Western Buddhism or even secular Buddhism. And his quote I wanted to share with the listeners, I know you know this, but his dream was that this American Buddhism would be easily understood and practiced by Americans, and that would contribute to American life and culture. This Buddhism can be explained in simple everyday language and practiced in every aspect of our daily life, yet it is a unique Buddhist life way, non-dichotomized, non-dualistic, and that would bring about a peaceful, meaningful, creative life both individually and collectively. Those were the words of Reverend Gyomay about his vision and his mission. It's been 12 plus years since the lay ministry program was established, and I think 20 some years, right, since the Kubose Dharma legacy was established, right?
Right.
To ensure that your father's teachings would continue on. And, from my vantage point as a student and inducted lay minister and now teacher, is that this legacy has certainly taken root and is thriving with how many lay ministers do we have now?
Over 50 maybe, I'm not sure.
I think it was 50 some. Right before we got on, I was going to do a quick check and I sort of forgot about that. So, but yeah, I think we're over 50 lay ministers in the 12 plus years. So, I feel that, it's a thriving community. What is your sense of it right now, Reverend Koyo?
Yeah, my thought when I listened to what you just said is that, everything is sort of a trade-off. If you go down one way, you say, well, yeah, this is what our movement, but then there's another aspect, maybe another trade-off. And so what we say is that, well, which way is the best? I thought you said this way, and then this goes this way. More secular, more everyday. Then maybe the other side trade-off is, it's sort of like I don't need religion, or traditional religion is not needed or even dangerous, or because we embrace this so much that you get too fervent about it, and then it gets corrupted in a way. So it's true. Our niche is, we have a niche, okay, but somehow we have to balance it off. Anytime we say, hey, this niche is really great, okay, even if we say it's great for me, okay, just say, hey, I could say that with confidence. It's great for me. Even that, there's a trade-off of you might get caught, or it catches you, or you grab onto it. Okay, if you grab onto it, there has to be something. No period, no conclusion, no. You're living it. Of course, then when you start to sit back and talk about it or try to describe it, that is a different matter than what you are really experiencing with it. So when we do, maybe this podcast is sort of like that, where it's only the finger pointing. And somehow we want to communicate that when we're talking about it. We say, yeah, but it's more than that. It's you got to look where the finger's pointing. That traditional story, that kind of thing. So I'm kind of evading in a way, but
no, that's actually, I liked where you went on that, because it was something I was thinking about bringing up at some point. The whole point of having an everyday Buddhism or something that is incorporated in daily life means that it's incorporated in the impermanence of everyday life. You change, your views change, your perspective change, the people around you impact you change. So although you may get attracted to, say, Bright Dawn's vision of Buddhism or whatever, for its well, we'll just use the term secularness since it's been kind of the buzz for a while. So even though that you may have been attracted to it, from that aspect, to begin with, maybe you've got disenfranchised by the religion of your birth or whatever the reason. But then when you get into it, it changes you. The people around you change you, and then you may pick up spiritual aspects that you didn't even know existed, or religious aspects, or traditional ritual aspects. Right? Is that kind of what you're getting at there?
That's well said, yeah. And I think there's a couple of, well, you could call them teachings or phrases that remind me or bring me back to that kind of a insight or realization. One is that, and all the old masters knew this too. So, for example, Dogen says, practice is enlightenment. Now, so that enlightenment might be the goal, see? And if an accomplishment, a grasping, whereas practice means hey, you're doing, it's dynamic, it's living.
Yeah.
It's, and I want to be forever changing. Okay, that kind of a feeling. Or the other statement is, I'm not sure exactly where I might have heard this, but I incorporated it into our program because it's so common sense for a participant. A truth seeker wants to say, okay, this is what I want. I'm going after it. Okay, and then usually they justify it by saying, okay, I'm going to get it, and then I'm going to teach it and help other people. Yeah, no, you can't fault that, but it's so seductive to be a teacher, to see oneself as a teacher, and to say this program, the whole reason I'm doing it is to finish it, to get the title, the status, even if it's only internally in a person's mind. That's built in. And so somehow we have to, the way we address it, what I just started to say was, the goal is not to become the teacher, but it's to become the student. I already thought I was a student. I want you to stay there. What do you mean stay there? I don't want to stay a student. Okay, I want to, no. That's where you got to use a kind of you might call it a Buddhist non-dualistic logic, or, you say, I want you to perfect your studentship. That's such a beautiful word, okay? That's the goal.
Yeah.
Perfect your studentship.
Yeah. People wouldn't know this. The listeners wouldn't know this, but when you gave us a little talk, when you first passed sort of the torch for us to take up some of the teaching of some of the classes, I remember this vividly. That was one thing you stressed to us, right? Don't be a teacher, be a perfect student. And and it rings in my ears. And I think I'm going off on a tangent now too, and I hope I didn't take you off your train of thought, but I like to share this with listeners because I don't think they would have any idea of what goes on like that. But I think a lot of times, like you said, people go after a certain goal, whether it be enlightenment or be a teacher or be a this or be a that or get a degree or whatever the thing is. And they have these expectations of what that looks like. And they have these expectations of what a teacher looks like. And I think it's typical in the way you teach, the way your father taught, the way his teacher taught, and we can talk about this later, sort of the lineage and the roots. But I know from my personal experience, having you as a teacher, it was you are sort of insidious and you sneak up on people and you don't know you're being taught. You see, you're so relaxed and you're just chatting away and you're saying this and that, and all of a sudden you realize you sort of got a whack on the back of your head.
Yeah, you know what that reminds me of is, yeah, that's a good point because uh, you here's what I imagine happens to a typical student. Um, First of all, they say, "Hey, this is pretty good. It's not real heavy on scholarly, esoteric, religious terms and everything. It's really down to earth. Okay, and so it's everything is green. Go, and then after a while, the trade-off starts to presumably trade-off starts to enter the student's mind. It says, but is this really Dharma? Is it really Buddhism?
Right.
And we're just talking about these everyday practical things and experiences. Okay, I get it. Yeah, everyday Dharma. But nothing's new happening now. I don't feel I'm progressing. It's just levels, sort of. I'm doing the same thing. I'm doing Dharma glimpses. I'm just hearing other people's Dharma glimpses. I learned not to seek the Dharma outside, but I seek it in myself. Okay, I realize that. Then you might say, "Well, I'm just going through the emotions now." I realize what it is, and I say, I take it, and I say, "Yes, I agree with it." And the way I would say it's like this is my analogy: the head, the heart, and the gut. Now, the head means, all three are important, but you start with the head first in terms of conceptual things. And you say, oh, right. So someone says an insight to you, and, or you read something great, a great teaching, and you grab it with your head. You say, aha, oh, man, yes. Okay. And then you start to hear it, the same thing. You hear it again and again. Then you say, oh, it's getting a little bit deeper. I can not only understand it, I could start to feel it. Okay? My feelings, my emotions, my heart. Man, yes, this is beyond just a belief thing. It's my belief thing. And then you start getting that my belief system, you keep experiencing it, and you experience the specialness of it. You could recognize it. Hey, I see the Dharma in my everyday life. Okay. But then, as every Sunday, you say, oh, hey, I see the Dharma in my everyday life. I see the Dharma in my life. Then it starts to maybe reify. It starts to get a thing. But since you're in the program and you got to keep going, so I can't quit, okay? Even though I'm not really excited anymore, but I'm doing it and I agree with it. Nothing against me, But so I'm going, and hopefully, and I think this is what happens because people for 2 years they have to keep doing the same old thing, same old, and then it goes into the gut, and they don't feel, oh, this is really great. They can hardly say anything about it with their mind, unless there's part of their karma to communicate it. Then you gotta sit down and think about it. Then you say, oh yeah, hey, the greatest thing I got out of Bright Dawn program is, the Dharma's everywhere. They think like that and they say, oh yeah, but during every day they don't think of that. Not when they have to talk about it, say, yeah, that's what I learned. Okay, and the only reason they learned that is, and then went into their gut, and the gut means natural, right. And that takes some decades. That's what I think about, like my sister, she teaches tea ceremony, Japanese art of tea, and some well, non-Buddhist, perhaps too westernized student comes and says, after a couple of weeks, she says, "Can I get my tea name now? Can I? Did I? I'm ready. There's no, studentship. They want to jump to become a sensei right away about this tea certificate, teachership, and so forth. And so maybe that's a way, that's something you got to get over. And the way we get over it in our program is we just beat it to death by repetition of the same old thing, and to go into the gut.
It's all true, though, but coming from, in some ways it would be fun to have a bunch of us on and talk about our own individual experiences years after getting out of the program or something. You know what I mean? That'd be something that would be fun to do. I don't know how we would do that, but something to think about. But one of the things, just because I'm only speaking from my experience, so I can only represent myself, but that you just said totally resonated with me, because I've always had, and sometimes I thought of it as a bad thing, but in hindsight, I see what happened is it was that sense of, okay, I don't think about this anymore. So what's happening? I'm not learning anything. I'm not growing. I'm not. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm not getting to my goal. I'm not, whatever that goal is, and there was that sense of that. I had that sense of that, and I've been I was inducted in 2009, so we're talking 9 years, right? And so when you say decades, I feel like that does happen. It's a sinking, it's a grounding, it gets into you, and you only once it has to almost get completely out of your head for you to feel it, right? And that takes time. I think that takes a lot of time. And then you see the specialness of the program, and then you see the specialness of being that perfect student. You don't see it right away. It's a maturing.
Yeah, maturing.
Exactly.
It's a ripening,
Yeah.
And when you get that fruit, you just got it. It's fresh. And that's the important thing. I mean, the way nature is, you don't get the ripe fruit right at the beginning. It's impossible. Not to, because like you said, it just takes time. You can't speed it up. So you got to have that fruit ripen and mature, and it takes decades. So somehow, maybe when you get back together again, a long time, and you say, "Oh yeah, I remember." I heard that a fruit takes a long time to ripen, but I really didn't know what that meant until now. Looking back on it, I was such a raw fruit, well.
Yeah. It's absolutely true, but I think that you brought up a very important point, is that, and you've said this before, it's to all of us, it's like when I asked you the question just to start all this, what we've just talked about was, where do you see it? Would you see it thriving? How do you see it? And you're essentially saying that you see it. It's constantly evolving and ripening, right? That's what's happening, right? With all these 50 plus inducted lay ministers, and you don't know where they're going to end up, right? Is that the other thing that surprises you?
Well, it's also, again, this is sort of conceptual, but a circle in a way, and for some reason I really resonate to T.S. Eliot's quote, I'm just paraphrasing, but you went on a journey and you returned home and you knew it for the first time. Now, there's a Buddhist 3-part poem. It was one of my teacher's favorite poems, and I remember that. And then when that teacher died, it was only about maybe 5 years ago, and his family, he was an American. He was a Japanese American BCA minister, Buddhist Churches of America minister. And And on his funeral program, they had that poem there. Everybody knew this was his favorite poem, and it's kind of challenging. It's kind of hard to understand, which is good. Now he says, okay, number one, part one is, before I studied Buddhism or the Dharma, it's an ordinary person. Trees were trees, mountains were mountains, and rivers were rivers. But then I entered the path. I went into the this gate, and the Dharma was so shining. And now mountains were not just mountains, and trees were not just trees, and rivers were not just rivers. Everything was, And then when I mastered the teachings, because, your life goes on, you're still going on. Maybe this is the ripening process, but you say, and then when I fully mastered the teachings, or it became natural in a way, then he doesn't say all that in the poem, but then he says, but then trees are once against trees, mountains were just mountains, rivers were just rivers, period.
Yeah. Isn't that the Mountains and Rivers Sutra?
I don't know. Is that what I'm not real familiar with the sources and citations. What is the difference? I mean, between the first and the third, river is a river. So this is where there's something there, though, because you see other poems too where it says things like, they talk about the lifespan of a man in decades, and they say, when I was 20, I was like this. When I was 30, then I was like this, then 40. And then it was about getting the Dharma, living in Dharma, mastering it. And then it says something like, when I'm 60, everything I did was divine, or something like that, where this is a metaphor for spiritual growth, the journey. They talk about it as a metaphor of 10 years in an individual man's life and how his thing matures, spirituality matures. But it's sort of a template for in general, the path of spiritual growth. And it ends up with just an old man going around his business, doing his business. But everything he does is divine. I don't know if that was the word exactly, but so that's the naturalness of it, And in a way, this is a strength of, relatively speaking, the Mahayana, or maybe the Shin Buddhist, or not that there's not trade-offs anywhere there too, but the thing about there was a minister, Reverend Ogui, who was in Cleveland at the time, some decades ago, and he would have a fall and spring, they call it a mind-body seminar, and he had a Zen Shin Sangha there. Zen Shin, and they're all, Caucasian Americans, small group, but very, a lot of vitality. And for the biannual seminars, he would invite a Zen teacher, and he would invite my father. So the Zen teacher he would do was from New York, and of course Zen priests are very dramatic, strong, and he says, so when I tell my students before the guest speaker comes, try to get them ready, and he doesn't have to. When the Zen teacher comes in, they're kind of very respectful, quiet, and he said they may even sort of fear him a little bit. There's kind of awe. And then when he invents my father to come, he pre-warns his students. Now I want you to watch him real careful and think about, watch him really careful, because if you don't do that, you'll think he's just an old man off the street. And so he tells me, he tells me, so boy, my students, they really watch him carefully, But that's sort of, the whole movement of Mahayana and of Shinran Shoni, who, took Buddhism away from the aristocracy and emphasized for ordinary farmers and stuff, because it was an aristocratical Buddhism. The priests were powerful. They hobnobbed with the politicians, and they showed off a lot with Buddhism in the arts, which is, the trade-offs there. It's good. It's a good cultural arts all over. But he went to the people. It started a movement. Right. And in fact, it's tradition, really, because the Buddha, that's how he was. But then maybe there's something instructive about this. Maybe something goes past maturing and ripening, and then it gets rotten. Maybe I better add that. Well, then it's going to get thrown into the compost, and new fruit's going to come up. Are you all right with that? Can you leap into that? Because it's not reincarnation. It's not you. Okay, that's going to be the new fruit.
Right.
Is that all right with you? Right. Well.
Yeah, I think you hit on something that I sort of wanted to go to anyway, all by yourself. Is I think the podcast listeners would be interested in understanding, more about what bright dawn is. We talk about it all the time, and but what does it mean? How did it come to be? And as a follow-up, and I'll remind you if this is one too many questions, can you tell us more about, the roots of Bright Dawn in the lineage or in the teachings and philosophies embraced by both your father and you, and particularly I've been interested, and I know you've been interested in, that I've been interested in, is that reformist lineage that, you even talked about with Shinran. That was a reformist sort of movement, bringing it to the people, bringing it away from the aristocracy. Buddha himself was a reformist, right? He reformed the thought of the caste system and Hinduism and brought it to just the person. But we, in Bright Dawn, we have a unique lineage, I think, starting with Kiyozawa Manshi through Haya Akagarasu, and that Dobokai or lay movement that was started in the 60s and then continued on through your father and the Buddhist Temple of Chicago, and then now through us in Bright Dawn. I'm fascinated by sort of how the reformist theme runs through all of this. What do you think? Can you tell me more about all of this?
Well, yeah, I think it is valuable to set that down, because, and a lot of teachers have done that. Shinran did it too in his Kyogo Shinsho, where he takes the 7 masters of his lineage, right. And he goes, and it is a Mahayana, so it starts with Nagarjuna and Madhyamika school and so forth, in order to I think to let people know this is not some new movement, really. It has its roots way back, and so you're you have to have that proper understanding. Otherwise, you say, "Oh, reform." Yeah, it is reform, but something new. But yeah, it's new, but it's also continuation of the old. Maybe there's been a lot of ripening, destruction. Oh, talking about dependent origination. I'm talking about constant change. You can see it right in there. So I thought, so that's what I'm sort of working on in terms of starting with the Buddha himself. Okay, in a way that's arbitrary, but say, okay, and he taught. Ananda. There's a quote. I don't know. Again, I'm not scholarly bent anyway, but I don't know. I can't cite anything, but I read things that I remember them in my mind. Maybe I even changed them in my mind, so I cannot cite it, as something that was in the original. But right. Ananda asked the Buddha, and he said, you're talking some this concept of emptiness comes up a lot. What is that? And he said, the Buddha said, when this arises, that arises. When this goes down, that goes down. That means that emptiness is dependent origination. It means interdependency. It means karma. It means cause and conditions. Nothing is spontaneously arises. Nothing has an enduring self or essence. Okay? So it lays the ground right there for a non-soul system, as my father would put it. Buddhism is a non-soul system. It calls into question, who am I? What is it? Because we have the provisional truths of, well, yeah, I know I exist. I got a name. I call it myself, everything. But, of course, the Dharma is saying, well, that's just, kind of a convenience, a necessary convenience, perhaps, that we live in together. We got to communicate and talk and whatnot. We have words. We have language. But in Buddhist teachings, which since it's non-dualistic religion, okay, it's got to say something like talking a negative, okay. And a lot of people have said this. My father says, and in the East, when they're trying to talk about wisdom, they talk about what it is not. Okay. Oh, no, not that. So, how about this? No, not that. Well, tell me what it is. No, not that either. So emptiness or nothingness means life, the dynamic change of things. Okay? There is a river, there is a self, but not a fixed entity per se, unchanging entity. So then we can get a glimpse into that aspect of wisdom, that aspect of non-duality, and it develops into, it's developed by Nagarjuna. Okay, maybe 500 years later, you see the flowering of that. And then the other thing about going to the people, it's been very common that Buddha is quoted as saying, don't believe in something just because I said it. Okay, check it out.
Right.
And some people have said, some Dharma teachers say, how great is that? Can you imagine some great religious teacher saying that, that's outrageous, But the scholarly citation for this is I think it's the Kamala Sutra, where Kamala or Kalama, I don't remember which it is. I get the L and the M mixed up on the last part. Kamala or Kalama, but
yeah, we'll look it up. We'll look it up later. I'll put it on the website.
Okay, yeah. But these people said they came to him, these villagers, and maybe they were a clan or whatever, and they asked them. They said, because in Buddha's time in India it was so many teachers. They say we hear a lot of teachings. How do we know which is the best one for us? And what the Buddha said, style of his time. I think it makes more impact when you read a sutra, because not just the conclusion that I started out with. Well, just check it out yourself. But in the style of the sutra, it says, "Oh, Kalama people, don't think something is true because X."
Right.
And he repeats it 3 times. Then he goes to Y, or maybe say A, B, C, and he says, and don't believe it because it's in the scriptures. And he repeats that, and then he goes on to, and then don't accept something is true because, that's the way it's been handed down all this time. And, it's a long thing. So I think I said, oh, this is important. He's spending a lot of time on this. It wasn't just a casual thing. Oh, just check it out in your own experience. I mean, that's how it's concluded or, condensed. But if you look at the sutra, you say, oh, this is an important point. And it is a form of going to the people. It's putting the source of authority not externally, not in another person, not in the doctrine, not in scriptures. Most times you think, oh, the older ancient things in Pali, yeah, that's more original than this translation, so earlier is better. Okay, going to the people.
Yeah, and you wrote a mission statement or something for us. I forgot what we called it. for the Bright Dawn program that's based on that, right? Can the whole point is that we're when we're inducted as lay ministers, it's like that being that perfect student. we're not ministering in the traditional sense, right?
Yeah. I mean, the greatest teaching there is by example, really. So if you sincerely, and not as a strategy really, but just sincerely, as say, leading a class or something, that you are a student, you are learning, you are getting excited about learning, you go on the same old path, but you see something new every time, that influences people around you. So that's sort of like sneaking in a teaching too, or you could call it that way, but, it's not like the teacher's using that as a strategy. So, and then when people, they express it to me in different ways. Sometimes when they come to induction or ceremony or later, one student said, what was a big thing for me, the way she expressed it was always looking for the teaching. I had to dig out the teaching outside of me. I mean, I was looking for it out there. I thought you were teaching us to go out there and find it for ourselves and grab it. But then I found out I had to dig within myself to get the teachings. I thought that was her way of expressing it.
Yeah, but, that's so true.
Yeah. But anyway, I could talk a little bit more. We'll outline quickly the time frame, historical time frame of it.
Yeah.
Because then, starting with the Buddha, he goes with where sunyata and wisdom comes from the Buddha, and then it's expressed in the teaching of sunyata, non-dualism. Okay, and the other parallel path is going to the people, source of authority. And this, I think, expressed as the Mahayana school. A couple hundred years after Nagarjuna, they find Vasubandhu and these two brothers that founded what came later to be developed into the Yogacara school, so-called mind only, which really is a way of saying, hey, it's you. Okay, that's another way of going to the people, to individual experience. And those two things, I think there's some kind of a spiritual tension between those two. We don't say a contradiction, but maybe paradoxical is a better word, where on the one hand we say, hey, no, complete impermanence, interdependency, the wisdom part of it. That's the what. Okay. But how, we're going to the people, how is through individual experience. Now the what, okay, if I wanted to, I'm working on this, so I'm kind of conceptualizing it, but the what and the how in terms of Bright Dawn program, okay, the what comes from the whole lineage of the Buddha's teaching of emptiness, Nagarjuna. It expresses it in the Mahayana different sects. It goes, and it gets a little spurt, a little peak in Shinran and Shinshu Buddhism. Okay, really going to the people now, and also the naturalness aspect of it, and then so I say it's philosophically speaking, the what is the ontology. What is reality? Mm-hmm. And then the other part is the epistemology of it. Is how do we know reality? And through individual experience. Now, the paradox is one says, hey, this is freedom, liberation, non-dualism, but you got to work hard to realize that. In a way that sometimes they say, oh, you don't want to force it. You don't want to. You rely on other power, or you realize this energy and force out there, and it's so big. Okay, that's what they're teaching, isn't it? Give ourselves to it, surrender, grace, and all this stuff. and then it gets perverted. Maybe you call it a trade-off. They say, "Oh, I don't have to do anything. Okay, God's going to take care of everything." Okay, and using another language, another religion's language, but they're pointing to this thing that, it's your ego, your self-centeredness that's been holding you back, and the whole society we're conditioned. Say you let go of that, but then it gets perverted into, "Oh, I don't have to do anything," Well, why did the Buddha and why in Buddhism did they talk about right effort, or the paramita of virya of, you got to have, vigor in there, and the whole individual experience going to the people means, hey, you better work hard on self-reflection and introspection, and show your sincerity there.
Yeah.
So you got to work hard to get that fruit. Yeah, and then the paradox comes in. Well, I had to work hard to get that fruit. Now I got to work hard to ripen it. No, I don't think so. Then you work hard, and then you're like Froggy, Froggy and Toad, where Froggy's visiting Toad, and he sees the flowers. Oh, your garden is beautiful. And, okay, this is a silly story, but it was in the book, in this children's book. So Froggy says, "Hey, I want that. How do you get that beautiful flower garden?" And Toad says, "Oh, nature. You got these seeds. You got these seeds?" He says, "Yeah, here, take some. What do you do with these?" So he plant them in the ground. He says, "Okay." He plants them in the ground, and then he comes back, the next day, and he says, "Hey, I planted them. Nothing happened." And then Toad says, "Geez, Froggy, you got to, water it. Did you put it in a sunny place? Did you water it? You got put some compost in there." He goes, "Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know." So he goes back and he does those things and makes sure the sun's shining and everything. He comes back. Maybe it's a week later. "Hey, Toad, the seeds you gave me is no good. It's still, nothing's happening. It's bare ground." And then Toad says, "Oh, man, you got to just wait." We're like that. "Oh, I scattered the seeds. Where's the flower?" But nature knows. Nature knows. Yeah. And it's not us and nature. We're in nature. We're part of nature.
Yeah. So you're working on like sort of comparing the broader sort of Mahayana tradition with the evolution of Bright Dawn then.
Yes, that's true. The what and the how.
Yes.
And trying to elaborate on that. And, and I have a lot of personal stories about this phrase, going to the people. And for example, I was just talking to a Unitarian minister. This is some decades ago, but I didn't know him, but he was a minister of Evanston Unitarian Church. Evanston is the next suburb next to Chicago. And for some reason, I was talking to him, and he said, "I didn't really know your father, but I really respect him because, and so many decades ago when I was a young minister here, we took our students on educational field trip, and we visited different churches and religions in Chicago. And he said, when we came to the Buddhist Temple of Chicago, your father greeted us, at the door. And then he gave a presentation, and then when we were leaving, he saw us off, and waited and saw us get on the bus, and he waved goodbye, and he goes, I'll tell you something. Religious leaders, they don't really go to the people. They sit back. They're big shots. They sit back and let the people come to them. But not your father. He goes to the people. And now this was not a big thing, but I somehow I remember it, and I said, I'm gonna talk about this. I include it in this part of going to the people, and why Bright Dawn offers this, or one of in our LM9 group, one to be inducted lay minister came. His mother came. Several people, but his mother came, and he was from Alabama, and here's a Southern mother, and so she's sitting in my living room, and we're just talking about different things, and somehow, the fact that we don't charge tuition, we say, hey man,
right.
Come on, welcome. I think that was part of it. She didn't say that, but what she said was, hey, what you're doing here, it's not a money thing, okay? And what you're doing is not a prestige thing. What you're doing is a giving thing. This lady's deep, This lady's, insightful. Right. Oh, wow. So just like the other story, I remember this. I said, yeah, we want to give to the people, okay? It's not a money thing. It's not a prestige thing. And, of course, not a prestige thing goes into the whole topic of the status of a sensei or a teacher or title, and, and it ties into the lay movement, too. So, anyway, those are some.
Yeah. No, well, it's so true. And I think about this a lot. It's sort of like a guiding principle, if you will. I think if you absorb it, if you let it ripen inside of you, so to use our metaphor of the day, it's sort of the guiding principle to maybe what Bright Dawn stands for, is going to the people. But people don't, it's not something you would think about. It's like, I think too many people still, even if they're escaping other religions to come to Buddhism and in this search of this great secular organization or something, I think they would miss the point, right? Because to get involved to any kind of organization that you're going to get involved in, I remember you've used the term many, many times. It's a debt too great to be repaid, or something of that sort. I'm paraphrasing you, but that's it. That most of us, I do not think, have that experience in our lives, and the way our lives are in today's fast-paced culture. And I'll say just not just fast-paced, but transactional culture, right? We're very used. Yeah. We're very used to, like, okay, we're going to go here, do this, and get this, right? We're either going to put in our time or pay our money or whatever. And you say at the very beginning of the Bright Dawn program, it's a sweat equity thing. But the thing is if there's an expectation of you're getting something, then I don't think you got it, right? So what you get is sort of a contagion of giving.
You say, hey, am I interested in this program or not? I mean, I didn't have to pay for it, so you can't waste your time, because otherwise what are you doing,
Right.
But if you pay, and it doesn't matter the amount. When you said transactional, somebody might say, oh, why don't you that's okay. Transactional is okay. That's how our society works. But
it's okay.
You don't have to make it.
Yeah.
You don't have to make it expensive. Just charge a little bit. That doesn't matter. You can pay a little bit, then boom. Hey, I paid. I got to get something.
I see. Yeah.
It changes the view, and see, that's the thing. It's like I wrote this article, and I'll post this on the website because it goes a little bit into the lineage, and it might give people some more perspective on how this all came about. But I wrote this article for a Meetashu newsletter called about Bright Dawn, and I called it Buddhism with Attitude, Keeping It Real and Alive. And I think that that's the aliveness. It's how each one takes it, ripens with it, if you will, and where they take it from there. Where do you? Two things I want to ask before we end today is, number one, I'll let you finish this one first, and then we'll go to the other one. Has the evolution of Bright Dawn and the lay ministry program surprised you in any way?
Well, I didn't really have expectations. And I'm thinking now of whether, there's such a thing as too much success. And maybe, everything starts as a reform movement, almost anything, and then it becomes it has such value. It's such a treasure. Then people say, I got to preserve this treasure. And then that preservation process means it gets codified, it gets, structured, it gets less organic. Okay, you want to control it, you want to protect it. Your motivation is, compassion and everything, but that's the trade-off part again. That's the reality of how it goes. Maybe there's something to that old mappo thing where there's time when it grows up and then it's got to go down. And then maybe it's got to come up in another form, but, that's more cosmology maybe, but not that long of a time frame. Let's say, if it gets... how do you preserve the initial spirit? Okay. Now, I think there are a lot of things you could do to maximize it, but you better not have an expectation that I'm putting this is it. This is So we're always a work in progress, and along with the same that teaching, yeah.
So you're saying that nothing really has surprised you about it, really.
Well, what surprised me? But the quality of the people, that was a question mark in the way in the beginning because some people said some people meaning people around me or board members or even some lay family members say, not only said they thought it was strange that you're not charging for this, but then how are you attracting students? Are you advertising or something? I said, well, we do have our website, but then this was the time. I don't know if it's still true, but if you're on the web and internet, be careful. There's all kind of people out there, and then they get in the back of their mind this mail order, diploma by mail order, and we said no. I don't think it's like that because it's a commitment of 2 years. Plus, it's not paying $5, paying $25, or even paying $100 to get your certificate. It's sweat equity, everything, and my assumption, and that proved true, that it was filtering, and the quality of you get sincere people, okay, and I was really gratified by that because I wasn't quite sure, and there might be some that self-select themselves out. The only reason they were in there because it was free, and then they said, then it wasn't for them. Okay, and not that they're on a different path or whatever, but so we always used to have at least one or two in each class drop out after a little while. So it is self-monitoring.
Self-selection, and
But that's 90%. Yeah.
I remember at the beginning, when we were first, I was in one of the first classes, and we tried to get more aggressive, and we started that Ning site and try to get more people in, and we were all gung ho, and you remember us, and we would push you to do this and push you. Well, shouldn't we do this? And you were saying, no, I have a laissez-faire attitude, and it was like, okay, but you started to see. That's the ripening again. You started to see over the years that was the smart way to do it because it evolved the way it needed to evolve based on the people that were in it, and everything, right? You always saw that, I think, and some of us upstarts didn't see it, but that's okay.
I think I take it for granted, but being with my father for all, since he was my father, but he was also my teacher, also, his life and sharing his life, that's how what I thought Buddhism was. I mean, I didn't even think about it. And as I look back on it, I say, that wasn't my strategy. That wasn't my whatever, or that was, that was just the natural if you plant a rose seed, you're not going to get a chrysanthemum. So, you're not going to plant a carrot and then you're surprised because it's a potato. So I think it's and plus, it was pointed out to me, and I took this idea, which might be of some importance when you talk about these historical things, is that lineage is a pretty strong word. And then they said, well, maybe legacy is better. Mm-hmm. That started me thinking on this topic. And as I was writing this historical stuff and the what and the how and everything going back in time, I said, it might be misinterpreted. Okay, legacy it's an okay word, but somebody might talk about a lineage, talk about a direct something or other. It could lead to problems. So to minimize it again, okay, I'd say I decided to use the word historical influences, okay, instead of lineage or legacy or heritage or roots. Even roots, okay, might be, maybe that's okay, but so I put the chapter heading historical influences, and then I talk about all this stuff.
Yeah,
but,
yeah. Lineage is too. Well, it's got that sense of what's the word? Like it has to be like, Yeah, you have to have like the certificate and the.
Yeah, you say, okay.
Yeah.
Hey, what's your source of authority in terms of lineage? I mean, so that's why it's important to do what all these other Shinran and all these other people did, to show, well, we were influenced by the Buddha, by the Dharma, okay, and historically what happened.
Right.
It's important, but not for the reason of authority per se in terms of lineage, because a lot of people.
Right.
We don't cater to that. So we're really because of blah 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 our lineage and so forth. And yet that's again trade-offs, because that is important too. Okay. Wow.
Right. Well, one more question. I do have one more question. What would you like to see? What would you like to see for Bright Dawn in the future? Since you didn't have expectations before, do you have them now?
Well, I think I have a great trust in the naturalness of things, and all things in its good time. And like for example, one of the lay ministers said, "Oh, somebody she was hosting a class, leading the class, and one student talked about this, and that's not true. Buddha didn't say that, okay? And should I correct this person?" And I said, no. Even though, maybe you could. I'm not saying don't, but even if, no matter how gentle, okay, because they said gently and everything, but no matter how gentle, it's pretty difficult, because like artists, individuals are sensitive people, and they could take it the wrong way, and it would have a dramatic effect. So I said, even if it's wrong for that person, let their karma unfold, their spiritual journey unfold as they go along. That's better, organic process. And it's the same for this organization, and it may go this way. There's no straight lines in nature. It's not like you want to put this water from the top of the mountain to the bottom and make a straight canal and, man-made. No, you know how the river does it. It just goes, goes this way, that way. So, whoa, it's going that way. No. Yeah, you let it go, and it'll get to the bottom. Okay, it'll get to the bottom. Yeah. I trust in gravity, and I trust in people, even though there may be detours along the way. So I feel that. And also, but going to the people, the whole lay movement of it, I think it fills a good niche where, clergy, lay, there's something inherently unhealthy about your spiritual leader being your employee if you're a board member, you're a temple member.
Right.
And so, that's a whole different social political thing and everything. But this way, somehow again, it's not fully formed yet in Bright Dawn, but to try to talk about that, to communicate it in a way that, well, lay people, and maybe this is also part of elaboration on going to the people, and powering individuals. Okay, even as you go forward, and you want to develop it structurally or format or whatever of your program. You got to have that in there. The fact that and of course, being a lay leader has a lot of perils too. Not just clergy aspect. I mean, just as, whenever you get a group of people together, you're going to have conflict, You have to just minimize it. You just have to minimize it. And don't be too surprised when, you have so-called setbacks, Don't expect anything from people, but be very grateful for what you do receive from the other people. So that gratitude, we ought to end on the fact that gratitude and humility, those are if you stress those, virtues and the virtues of ambiguity and uncertainty, I think that's built into Buddhism itself. But that's part of our niche where we really say, hey, you can see gratitude in all the, schools or approaches and stuff and everything, but we really want to kind of use that as a niche, I guess. That's the word I've been using, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, that is a good ending point, Reverend Koyo, because it's one of the reasons why I did this program to begin with, to express my gratitude for you and for Adrian Kubose and Bright Dawn and all my Bright Dawn brothers and sisters, and all the people listening to this podcast who always ask me about Bright Dawn. So now they know probably more than they want to know. So
I love it. Yeah.
All right. So thank you. And in gratitude, a deep bow and big bow to you. And thank you for being with us today.
Okay. Thank you.
That's it for today's episode. Thank you for joining me. And thanks again to Reverend Koyo for joining me on what was, I hope everybody thought was a fun episode as well as an educational episode. And thanks to everyone who listens to the podcast, comments on the website or the new public Facebook group, and who, of course, donates to help me keep the content written, produced, and distributed. If I haven't replied to any of your messages or questions yet, I will. I always try to reach out with a private email of thanks or an answer to a question, but be patient because I'm happy to say the numbers are growing, as I said a few times here already. And because of that, I launched a new Dharma to Go forum that for a small donation, you will be guaranteed a timely personal answer to your question. Dharma to Go can be found at dharmatogo.com or through the Dharma to Go tab on my website. As always, if you like this podcast, please consider supporting my work through a recurring or one-time donation on my Patreon page at www.patreon.com/everydaybuddhism or through the donate page on my website everyday-buddhism.com or everydaybuddhism.com. I wish you and yours the warmest and happiest of holidays. I hope to release a special New Year episode very soon and another in this series of conversations with my teachers very soon after that, early on in the new year. So until next time, keep making your everydays better.